How much fun was that, Mets fans? In game one of this much anticipated series against the Atlanta Braves, the Mets showed up in a big way, particularly the new Mets. Tyler Naquin, 2 home runs. Daniel Vogelbach hit another. You had Pete Alonso homer, of course, driving a couple. Carlos Carrasco, quality start. Edwin Diaz, 6-out save. Going to be talking about a fantastic game on the show today. And also for a Friday Farm Report, little talk about Francisco Alvarez and Mark Vientos. All of that on this edition of Locked On Mets.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. If you want to find any of my work, follow me on Twitter at FinkelsteinRyan. You can also find some of my writing at justbaseball.com, where I work as the managing editor. That game was awesome, okay? Pete Alonso, first inning, get an RBI single. You're feeling pretty good as a Mets fan. All right, Mets 1-0. You know, this is the much anticipated series against the Braves. Got to show up, show out, feeling good. The party was just getting started, though. Tyler Naquin, what a performance. Every single thing that Billy Epler has done at this deadline outside of Michael Givens has come up money. I know that we disputed it a lot. We've talked through it. Tonight, Billy Epler was up in some suite somewhere watching that game with a big smile on his face as Tyler Naquin hits a home run. And you have Pete Alonso in the third inning. He homers. That was huge, a 2-run shot. Then Daniel Vogelbach homers. So you have Vogelbach and Naquin both homer in the same game. Can't get any better than that for your Billy Epler, right? Later on, bottom of the sixth, Naquin goes out and homers again. So 3 home runs from these guys. I saw some, I think it was Nate Mendelson from Metsmerize, tweet out however many games, JD and Dom played this year, 120, whatever it was combined. I don't even know. But however many games they played together or they played for the Mets this season, they hit 4 home runs. And these two guys tonight hit 3. You want to throw in the granny from Vogelbach a day before, they matched the home run total. That is what was so important about this deadline. They got pop in this lineup. You weren't even expecting it from Naquin, but honestly, watching this guy swing, he has more pop than a Mark Canha in a lot of respects. Might not be the same on-base threat that Canha is, but he's got a lot of juice in that bat, and obviously Vogelbach is just giving you a whole different complexion in the middle of that lineup. Legitimate, protection for Pete Alonso that we haven't seen this season. So to see that, to see the way this team kind of rose to the occasion, such a heightened atmosphere in the ballpark, see the fans really getting into it. This is what you want, man. This is the type of baseball that you've been deprived of as a Mets fan for so many years. When you get 2 divisional teams post-deadline going head-to-head, division at stake, this is the type of atmosphere, the type of environment, the type of game that just makes you love baseball that much more. And I had so much fun watching this game. Carlos Carrasco, really solid effort for him. 1 bad inning, but overall, 6 innings pitched, 4 hits allowed, 3 earned runs, walked 1, 6 strikeouts. You kind of look back at the inning that he did give up those runs, and Travis d'Arnaud singles. They get him over to third base. Michael Harris drives him in with a single as well. Ronald Acuna Jr. hits a home run. Okay, so the Braves lineup did a little bit of something there. They tack on another run in the 7th, but overall, the Mets pitching held pretty strong there. Adam Ottavino got through the inning, giving up that 1 run, but Edwin Diaz, as much as Carlos Carrasco did a great job, another quality outing, gets his 12th win. He deserves all the credit in the world for what he did to get the Mets in position. Edwin Diaz is the best closer in baseball, and it's not even close right now. This guy is on a completely different planet, and you see him get 6 outs in a game like this, and this is why you feel so good about the Mets. It's a combination of all these guys performing in the lineup, the starting rotation, of course, but Having a lockdown closer like this, that's what you need. I talked about it a couple podcasts ago. As much as people want to rag on Jeurys Familia, he was a real legitimate reason, one of the driving forces in that 2015 being as good as it was, because he was a lockdown closer throughout the season, and he was nails all the way up to that one pitch against Alex Gordon in the playoffs. And even after that, he was lights out. So you need that. And Edwin Diaz right now, his ERA is down to 1.44, but that run that he gave up was like one run he's given up since like May 27th or something along those lines. Coming into this start or this outing, he had been striking out 52.5% of the batters he faces. Strikes out 3 tonight. So that number unfortunately goes down a little bit because what did he face here? So 7 batters, 3 strikeouts. I mean, what a shame for Edwin Diaz. But an incredible performance by him. You lose him for the next game. I don't think that matters. This was good. You got to get the first one because now you're sitting in the position, even if the Mets lose game 2, right? Which they got Taijuan Walker on the hill. You still feel good about it. But even if they lose that game, coming up ahead, you have essentially a 3-game series then, if you split the first 2, where you got Scherzer and DeGrom going in 2 to 3 games. So the Mets are in great position. And by winning this game, they're going to walk out of this series with the division lead. That's huge. But right now, they're at 4.5 games. And guess what? Beat up on this team. Just imagine. I don't know if I should even put this out there, but let's just really think about this. What if the Mets put their foot down in the throat of the Braves this weekend? Can you imagine that? Can you imagine if the unthinkable were to happen? I'm not even going to say what it is. I'm going to let you dream on it as a Mets fan. I think you can pick up what I'm telling you, what I'm putting out there that is a feasible possibility. They go out, they win Friday. They go into a doubleheader. They've been good in doubleheaders this year. DeGrom on the hill on Sunday. This team's fun, man. It's a great vibe right now to watch this Mets ball club. And when we've seen these two teams go head to head recently, the Mets have looked better. So cry all you want about the trade deadline, whatever. To me, put all that behind you. Focus on this team, focus on this run because it's going to be one wild ride and one amazing weekend ahead. I'm sure there's going to be some downs. I don't think it's all going to be ups, but it could be. For the rest of the show today, we got a Friday Farm Report. I recorded this a little bit earlier today with me and Jordan Grossman, social media coordinator. We're talking about Alvarez. We're talking about Vientos. Is there a chance we see either of them this season, particularly Alvarez? Because that lineup looks great right now, but what would it look like if you add in a catcher who's kind of incredible and a generational talent instead of Tomas Nido and James McCann? Excited to think about. But before we get into any of that, whether you are ready to pop the question or if you're celebrating a milestone moment, find jewelry as unique as her with the modern convenience of online shopping at BlueNile.com. There you can build the engagement ring of her dreams as Blue Nile has simple online tools to let you choose the diamond shape, size, and clarity, as well as the setting style. Blue Nile's bench jewelers will then handcraft her perfect engagement ring. Each ring is one of a kind, so you can celebrate life special moments with fine jewelry, as Blue Nile has jewelry experts on hand 24/7, available via phone or chat to help you find a memorable gift at every budget. Make your moment sparkle with jewelry from BlueNile.com, and Locked On Mets listeners will get $50 off purchases of $500 or more. This podcast exclusive includes engagement, so use the code Locked On. Again, that's code Locked On. Plus, every order is insured, ships free, and arrives in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside. Shop stress free and find your forever peace by going to BlueNile.com today. Friday Farm Report after the trade deadline. Got our guy Jordan Grossman here, runs our social media at Locked On Mets. Before we talk about Francisco Alvarez, which is the meat of our discussion today, because here's this guy who suddenly figured it out at AAA. We knew it would happen. And without Contreras being on this Mets team, there's going to be even more of a push from fans to get him up here for the stretch run of the season. Before we get to that, as another Mets fan, I want your take. What was your overall thoughts of the trade deadline?
So I thought it was a little bit of an overreaction. People were getting on Epler saying he completely blew it. I don't think he added the pieces necessary. I think he definitely missed out on someone like Chafin. That's who I really wanted to just bolster the bullpen, especially from the left side. Givens is a good reliever to get, even though he stunk it up yesterday against the Nationals. I'm not really worried about that. That's just a one-off thing for him, probably. Um, yeah, I really would have liked to see a lefty. Obviously, the Contreras thing bums me out too because I wanted him for a while. With looking at the production from the Mets catchers, I think they're 28th in Major League Baseball in OPS for the catching position. Um, but yeah, like I mean, it's gonna bring up the conversation of Francisco Alvarez. So see what
Yeah,
happens with that.
yeah, that's where I want to get to right now. And then we're going to talk a little bit about Ruff in the next segment when we kind of transition to some Mark Vientos talk. But just give me the numbers, man. I want the listeners to understand he's got this on base streak right now, drawing a ton of walks, hitting for some power. We were just talking before we hit record about this absolute nuke that he hit last night that you said they're still trying to figure out how far it went. My guess is at least 500 feet. It was absolutely insane. Check out my Twitter, or just anywhere on Twitter to find a video of this clip. You want to watch it. But what has Alvarez been doing the last couple of weeks here?
So he started off slow in AAA the first 6, 7 games. I think he was 2 for 20, only one extra base hit. So it's like a lot of people expected the 20-year-old kid. He's gonna have to make adjustments, and he did in a big way. Last 12 games, he has a 418 on base percentage with a 610 slugging, hit 4 home runs, 7 extra base hits, and 12 games, 13 walks, only 14 strikeouts. That's really impressive. He's being really selective at the plate. Just, he realizes he's not going to get a pitch to hit every single at bat. So he's being selective. He's waiting for his pitch. And then when he gets his pitch, he absolutely demolishes it. He's constantly in the 100 plus mile exit velocity range. It's so impressive what he can do with the bat. And he's finally getting comfortable in AAA.
He is, and it didn't take too long. And even when he was struggling to hit the ball, he was still giving you good at bats as far as drawing those walks. That's really nice to see. That's going to really increase his floor when he does get to the big leagues. Even if he struggles a little bit, at least you know he's giving you quality at bats, getting on base, and the power is undeniable. It's going to come for him. That is the thing. And so when you talk about this Mets team, it's an interesting conversation. I think that to not trade for Contreras was a move that I know upset fans. I think it comes down to the cost, right? If the Cubs didn't like Ronnie Mauricio and Mark Vientos, which is a distinct possibility, then you're getting into trading an Alex Ramirez. I don't think the Mets wanted to do that for Contreras. I don't think they definitely weren't going to trade Beatty or Alvarez in that type of a deal. And they didn't want to gut their farm system of all of their arms to get a rental either. So I think considering the cost, the Mets end up, looking at it and say, we'll go defense for the remainder of the season. But you also can't deny in the back of their head them thinking, if we had to, we can call this kid and we know that he's going to give us just as good of at bats as you can get from anyone. Honestly, like I tweeted out, and I know it was ridiculous overreaction to say this, but I said, would it be crazy to say that Alvarez is a better player right now than Wilson Contreras? I was joking. He's a veteran. He's been in the big leagues for a long time. But just the fact that I could say that and it's not completely outlandish just speaks to the potential that this guy has and the potential to potentially impact the race this season.
Listen, I wouldn't go that far, but
Yeah.
he's got the potential to be just as good as Contreras, probably even better in the long run. Contreras 3-time All Star. I can see Alvarez being that kind of guy for 6, 7, 8 years with his ceiling. Um, and I wanted to get back to the Vientos Mauricio discussion for a second, just really quickly. I think
Yeah.
what a lot of Mets fans need to realize from this trade deadline is that Mauricio and Vientos don't hold the value across the league that most fans think they do. Mauricio is a guy who has a 4% walk rate in Double-A, lots of power, obviously, but he's probably going to move off shortstop soon. Hasn't 1,500 plate appearances in the minors for his career, hasn't gotten over a 300 on base percentage. That's pretty ugly. Mark Vientos, who I love, I've talked about him on this podcast multiple times, but he's also first base DH type that's hitting 740 OPS against righties this year and has a 30% strikeout rate. So it makes sense that these teams don't love them as the main piece going back, and they'd want maybe an Alex Ramirez, maybe a Calvin Ziegler, one of those types of guys that really has high upside in the lower levels of the system. So yeah, that's just something I wanted to point out, that their value is really not as great, but still, I think they can keep those guys, let's say for maybe a Shohei Ohtani in the offseason as an extra piece in that kind of deal.
Yeah, if they're gonna swing that type of a trade, it's gonna start with a Beatty or an Alvarez, but those are the type of pieces that fill out a package. And look, we've been talking about Mauricio since the offseason as a player that I think both of us were comfortable seeing the Mets deal. I mean, there's other, talent evaluators across baseball that have even more information than us that are seeing the holes in this guy's game. So it's not surprising you hoped that there was a team out there that loved Ronnie Mauricio, whether it was the Cubs or the Tigers or one of these teams that you could have gotten something of value. And I think, like you said, it kind of does speak to a lack of value across baseball, where they see a guy who just doesn't give you quality at bats at a frequent enough rate. There's a bunch of potential there, but Ronnie Mauricio just wasn't going to headline a Contreras trade, I guess. So that leaves you with this team, and it's kind of set as is. I want to get into what the Mets do here, because I think that the Darren Ruff Vogelbach platoon is really solid. I want to get your take on that and whether they have to go to a Vientos in the second half, but still, I think some of the untapped ceiling on this roster offensively lies in these two prospects we spent so much time talking about in Francisco Alvarez and Mark Vientos. Before we get to that, though, BetOnline.net is your number one source for all of your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, as BetOnline is your continued source for all of your sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. BetOnline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite sports and events, including MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in the action. BetOnline, where the game starts. So speaking of Darren Ruff, a lot of fans were upset about a bunch of pitchers that got traded that they've probably never heard of before, but it did seem like a lot to give up three pitchers and JD Davis in one trade for Ruff. I was okay with it, as I already pointed out the stats. You're talking about a guy since 2020 that has a 155 WRC plus against left-handed pitching. That's ninth best among hitters with at least 200 plate appearances. His 22 home runs against lefties, ninth best as well. So you're talking about a top 10 lefty masher in baseball. It is the perfect complement to Vogelbach, but the price was a little bit steep.
The price was definitely steep. JD Davis, I really, I couldn't care less that he's gone. Gave us some good memories in 2019, but the guy wasn't really productive over the last 3 years. So I wish him the best in San Francisco. But the main
I
piece
don't,
going
by the
back,
way. I just want to say,
the main piece going back in the rough deal, Nick Zwack, that's the one I'm just really upset about that he had to go in this deal. It makes sense why San Francisco would want him. Throw 95 from the left side. Really helium guy in the Mets system, got up to high A this year. I think he was a 2021 pick for them, and he's really turned some heads in the system. So I expect San Francisco to turn into a legit 4 or 5 starter in the majors. But Ruff was definitely a need for this team. I mean, if you look at the DH platoon the Mets were running out, I tweeted out for Lockdown Mets account the other day that they didn't make the sexy move, but JD Davis was giving you a 660, I believe, OPS against left-handed pitching, and then Dom Smith was giving you a 560 OPS against right-handed pitching. And then when you go to Vogelbach and Ruff, you're getting from against righties, you're getting Vogelbach with a 906 OPS, and then Darren Ruff against lefties 887 OPS this year. So not the sexy move, but it definitely gives you a big boost to a position where you've been bottom three in offensive production with the DH. So it's definitely it's going to help this offense in the long run for this season.
yeah, and you've seen it with what Vogelbach's already done for this Mets team. Hits a grand slam yesterday. He's been so good. And I think that Ruff is a bet against Mark Vientos to some respects. Not that I don't think that the Mets, I believe the Mets still like Mark Vientos a lot as a prospect, but to throw him into the fire, it was going to be a tall, tall task, a tall order for him to come through and really be that answer. So now you get a much better fit for this season in Ruff. And I kind of think that might keep Vientos in AAA all year. Unless there's an injury, do we see Mark Vientos now? I don't know if we do.
I don't know. I saw Wednesday night he got pulled from the lineup right before the game started, and people started like asking questions like, "Ooh, what's going on? What's going on?" Maybe by the time this episode comes out, he's in the lineup against the Braves. Out of for all I know, I think it's probably just maybe he's sick or he has maybe his knees bothering him still. I don't know. Could be a maintenance day. But yeah, I think this basically solidifies not Mauricio, Vientos sticking around in AAA for the remainder of the season. Let him get, the strikeout rate is still not great. Let him work on that. The numbers against righties haven't been the best. So if he spends the rest of the season in AAA, I don't think it's the worst thing. I know Mets fans just want to see him come in here and mash left-handed pitching, which is what he's really good at. I want to pull up the numbers here actually because they're absolutely ridiculous. 106 plate appearances against lefties this year, 337 average, 406 on base, and then a 750 slugging. So he's just been absolutely destroying them, which is really nice to see. But yeah, I think the strikeout numbers, over 30% AAA, that needs to come down. So it's something he has to work on while he's over there. And Darren Ruff gives some nice insurance for the Mets on the major league team.
Yeah, and I think if someone goes down with an injury, he's the first call. And like you said, who knows? The way this works out, we're recording this in the morning on Thursday here. Tonight or in a couple hours, we'll find out Vientos got called up, and the whole thing ends up being a moot point. But I really do think that this is the answer now at DH. I don't think they had to do anything when it comes to their prospects, which is why you also can see Alvarez in a different light because we thought Alvarez could also be that right-handed complement at DH. Now it's right down to catcher. So if that is the question here, if Alvarez comes up and he is your catcher, for one, I just want to roll through a lineup really quick. Okay, so just imagine you're 1 through 9. You got Nimmo, Marte, Lindor, Alonso, Vogelbach, McNeil. That's your first 6. Okay, it's pretty damn good. Alvarez maybe bats 7th. I don't know. Guillorme, Canna. I mean, 1 through 9, that's really tantalizing to think about. At the same time, that means Alvarez is catching a Max Scherzer or even worse, a Chris Bassett. I don't think that would ever actually happen. I think they'd have to say, just keep Nito back there because Bassett might kill the poor kid. Defensively, is it too much to ask him now to go into the games that are most important and suddenly he's your starting catcher in the playoffs?
I think so. Yeah, I think people look at the prospect status and what he's doing and just can forget that he's 20 years old. He's not even like legally able to drink. So this is a kid who I think he would benefit more from staying the rest of the season in AAA. Getting his feet fully under him. He's like I said, he started to heat up there, but it's only been 12 games that he's really started to pick it up. Let him spend the rest of the season there, and then when 2023 rolls around, hopefully you can find someone to take James McCann's contract, and you give him every chance available in spring training to earn that opening day catching job. And
Yeah.
I think that just makes more sense. It could have made sense if you didn't add a Darren Ruff and you just said, okay, screw it, we're going to call up Alvarez, we're going to carry 3 catchers and just let him bat strictly against left-handed pitching, and then Vogelbach will be against righties. That could have made some sense, but at the same time, when I look at guys like Bobby Witt, Julio Rodriguez, Adley Rutschman, those are all guys with top prospect status entering the season, and they struggled for the first 2 to 3 weeks that they came up. So that could be a problem for the Mets too if they decide to call him up now. Where if let's say he's in there 2 3 weeks in September and he's just he's hitting 170 with 1 home run, that's really not gonna it's gonna hurt them in the stretch where they really are gonna be fighting with Atlanta for the division title. So I just it makes more sense for opening day at this point.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the idea of Mark Vientos and Francisco Alvarez in the big league lineup, we all want to see it. Every fan follows these guys throughout their minor league careers, and you want to see the top prospects come up, and particularly to come up for a winner. It's such a fun, prospect to imagine that. But what the Mets did at this deadline is they got win now vets to come in here and go for it. And so because of Darren Ruff's presence, I think it probably does keep both of these guys down there. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with seeing Vientos and Alvarez put up big numbers in AAA. That's going to only increase both of their trade value. Not that I think Alvarez will be traded, but Vientos certainly could this offseason. And then I think both of them have a really good stake at a roster spot come opening day next year. Darren Ruff is under contract next season for $3 million, and they have a team option on it for 3.5. I think that's a good deal for them. But I don't think that you're 100% saying, all right, because we have Darren Ruff, we're going to hold back on Mark Vientos next season. Now, though, it makes sense. And the same thing goes with Alvarez. It just makes more sense to hold him in the minor leagues for the remainder of this season. But the possibility still lies that both of them could be up. And I think more likely it would be a combination of their performance just being so outstanding that the Mets just feel like they got to call them. And also, injury could always make these things more of a probability than we were currently foreshadowing now. But that is our Friday farm report for the week. Make sure you tune in next week for another Friday Farm Reporters. We'll keep tabs on these guys. As always, thank you for listening. Make sure you follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at Finkelstein Ryan. Follow the show account at Locked On Mets. Jordan is the one who does a lot of the tweeting over there along with Josh Finkelstein. And as always, make sure you make your second listen Locked On MLB. Paul Francis Sullivan has you covered with everything going on in Major League Baseball. You can follow Locked On MLB wherever you get podcasts.